Welcome to Season 5 of She Ventures. I am your host, Doria Lavanino. She Ventures is a podcast about women and their work and life pivots. I believe in the power of storytelling. I also believe that if you change one woman's life, you start to change a family or a community. Our mission is to elevate the diverse stories of everyday women in their work. One promise, no mansplaining ever. Sit back, listen, and hit subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us at sheventurespodcast.com. Her childhood was spent in an orphanage in South Korea, where she endured physical and mental abuse, poverty, and hunger. At 14, she was adopted by an American family and realized she was given a new opportunity. She worked as a certified nurse assistant for decades, and about 7 years ago, she became interested in trading in options. Complex financial instruments, in my opinion, but perhaps she'll tell us differently, and achieved substantial success and has become a millionaire. Also a book author. Here to fill us in on the blanks of what must have been a mind-blowing journey is Sun Yong Kim-Manzolini. Welcome to She Ventures.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here today.
It is a pleasure. And when I read about you, I said, I've got to have this woman on my podcast because what a journey you have had. I wanted to start at the beginning. You spent more than a decade of your life knowing nothing outside of the orphanage where you were raised. Can you describe the conditions there and what might have happened on a typical day?
I was dropped off by my sister after my mother passed away when I was about 2 or so. And my dad decided, I can't take care of you guys. So my sister and we became an instant orphan. We stayed at one orphanage. 1 year, she decided to show me a picture. And I said, what is that? She says, this is where I'm going to take you. And I said, no, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm just fine living with you. And she said, but I have to take you there. And I was just like, no, I'm not going. Anyway, she took me to another orphanage. It's called Rehab Center. It's so full of handicapped kids. All the kids there had a polio, getting around with the wheelchairs, crutches, and things like that. And then there was me. I didn't even know how to walk. She decided to take me there because that's the only place that she knew. It's an orphanage, but then it's also collaborations with the rehab center. And so she dropped me off, and it was a very hard separation. She had to lie to me saying that she had to go to the bathroom because she knew that I wasn't going to let go of her. So after, it seems like it took me like a half a day to say, no, I would just hang onto her hand and say, I don't want to go. I don't want you to go. She said, I just want to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And I said, but why can't I go with you? If you're just going to the bathroom, I could go.
Kids always know.
Yeah. She says, no, I can't. So that was the moment that I just, back in my mind, I knew that she wasn't going to come back. But I had to trust her, the fact that she had to go to the bathroom. So I finally let her go after hanging onto her arms like this for hours and hours, just not wanting to let her go. I finally let her go. She never came back. That's when the pivot point of my life where I hated people. I lost all the trust with people. I was abandoned by my dad and then my sister. And I did not smile for the first 14 years of my life. I never looked in the mirror. I just hated the world. I wanted to crawl back into my mother's womb, but then she's no longer is alive. So I couldn't do that. So for 14 years in life in orphanage was very, very difficult. Every night, even though I didn't see the sun, but I just imagined myself, the sky, and there was a moon, and I just saw that I could see my mother's face. That's how bad I was mourning for my mother, because I wanted to tell her so bad that what happened to us after she passed away.
Gosh, that is so difficult. Are you in touch with your sister today?
No. In fact, 2018, my husband and I and my teenage son, we went, when I retired in 2015, 2018, I was able to go to Korea for 1 month because if I was working for corporate work, there's no way they'll let me off, a month at a time. But since I retired, I was able to have that month off, and we went back to trying to look for my sister. And I went to private investigators, police departments in Mokpo and Daejeon, and I got to revisit my orphanage where I grew up and visited a few people still there. But I didn't know my sister's birthday. Only thing I knew about her was her name, and then I didn't know my mom and dad's name. So even though I went through the private investigating missing people, police stations, department, and they couldn't help me.
So you couldn't find her. And it was kind of it's an unresolved issue in your life. And yet at 14, how did it come about that you became adopted by an American family?
When I lived in that orphanage, it was very harsh. So 100% of the kids were all handicapped. 80% of the kids, they had a family, but 20% of us didn't have a family. So we were orphans with a handicap. There was a couple from America that was wanting to adopt a special needs child. And before that happened, there's some couple of Korean couples came to that orphanage, looked me over, wanted to adopt me. They called me into the office and said, you know what, there's a possibility that somebody may want to adopt you. There were Korean families. They came and they looked me over. And again, I was rejected by a couple of families. And inside of me, I feel like there's another rejection. It was keep happening over and over and over. I was sad. And when they were looking over at me, inside of me was thinking, please take me home. I want to wear pretty clothes. I want to be able to wear clothes that are matching. I want to be able to eat normal food. I was just really saying those to myself, but I couldn't let them because what if I said it and they can take me home? It would be a bigger rejection. Without even sharing my words, they still rejected me. They still didn't adopt me. So this American couple was looking for specifically a special needs child. And I fit into that category of special needs child because I was 14. Normally they adopt the babies. And my legs were crooked. I didn't learn to walk until I was about 6, 7 years old. I learned to walk in orphanage.
What happened there? Did you actually have a disability? I didn't understand that
Yeah,
before.
so I did not walk. That's the reason why my sister took me there so that they could teach me how to walk. She says, I'm going to have to take you there so they could teach you how to walk. And I said, I don't want to learn to walk. I just want to live with you. But she
Right.
knew what she had to do. So when I went there at age 9 or 10, it took me a couple of years to learn to walk, I would say, because we didn't have any rehab. We don't have any like occupational therapist. So it's just a staff worker. And they just show me how to hang onto the rail, just get up, walk, and practice
Yeah.
that. And it took a long time. So all I had was a staff showing me what to do. And then I just had a rail to hang on to from one end of the wall to the other side. And I just learned to walk that way. So I was about 6 or 7 years old, stood up first time without holding on to anything. And they wanted me to take a step. And I said,
It's so symbolic also of your inner life, right?
yes,
Would you say that your inability to walk, or was it physical or was it psychological?
both. Because I feel like nobody really showed me how to crawl or even to walk. Because I have 4 kids of my own, and when I raise their kids, when they're learning to crawl, I would put the toys, in front of them and have them crawl, trying to reach. And then when they're, standing up, I would have them, hang on to the things, and I would hold their hands and come on, take a walk. I never got any of that. I never had any toys when I grew up. Never was celebrated my birthdays or Christmas or anything. Although one year I did get an apple by my head when I was in orphanage, the one apple, the only apple, and that tasted, it was so good.
That puts things in perspective that an apple was an amazing gift. So this family looked for a special needs child of which you fit into the category that they were looking at. And then what happened next?
So they adopted me and they had to send some money so that they could buy me a decent clothes to wear. And age 14, I was born with minor hair lip. And so I was really conscious about showing my lip. And that's one of the reasons why I never looked in the mirror, because I was bullied in orphanage. Kids were calling me names. In Korea, when you are handicapped of any sort, they just kind of looked at you as a garbage, that you shouldn't exist. In other words, I belong to all that category. I was abandoned. I was born with minor hair lip. I couldn't walk. I was bullied and made teased, and it was just too much. And one day when I was in orphanage, though, I wanted to see what kids were making fun of me, because they were calling me names with my hair lip, and I had no idea. One time when I was in orphanage, and I'll go back to how I was adopted, was that outside of the building there was a metal part in the edge, like the walls. I noticed there was a metal part, and I just very carefully, I wanted to make sure nobody was watching me. And I went outside, and I just barely like looked into the edge of the wall of the building to see my reflection first time. And I realized, wow, no wonder why kids were making fun of me. I realized that. So I was adopted. I was very self-conscious. In fact, I even have a picture of me. I came through the Holt adoption agency, and there were all these babies were being adopted, and I was the only one that was. But of course, I was walking by then, because I learned to walk at age 6 or 7. One of the ladies was holding the baby, and she was hanging onto my hand, and I had a one hand covering my mouth because I was so subconscious as a teenager. But although my parents already knew that I was already a handicap, I was a special needs child. They already knew that. But still, as a teenager, so I covered my mouth. And then when we met at the San Francisco, they hugged me. And that's the first time that I have ever felt hug from anybody. But me, instead of bracing them, I was so shy. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't able to embrace because I was so self-conscious. I was kind of a little embarrassed the way I looked.
Did they understand, and were they able to slowly help you come out of your shell?
Yes. They had 6 of their own kids, and they adopted one Korean child when she was about 4 years old. I was their 8th child, because they had 6 of their own, adopted one child from Korea, not from same orphanage, but, younger baby, a 4-year-old. I was really excited that she was Korean, but she didn't know how to speak. So I came the summer right after my birthday, when I just turned 14. In May 18th was my birthday, and I came on 27th of May. And the summer just started. So my mother sacrificed. She usually did a lot of canning with her 6, 7 kids. She did a lot of canning and all that, preparing for winter. But instead, she sacrificed her summer. Instead of canning, she taught me English. I didn't know my ABCs. So she taught me that, and we did a lot of sign languages, using dictionaries, looking up things like that.
How was it academically? Were you able to go into high school at 14, and was that a struggle as well?
I started with the junior high because I had no knowledge of ABCs even. And my mother thought it was a bit too much to go to high school, because I finished the junior high in orphanage there. We had a school there. But I started junior high in here, and was very, very difficult. I would study every single summer. I would take all those special English classes. And for me to do a homework, it would take me just a one question. It would take me about 2, 3 hours, because I had to look up every single word with the dictionaries, trying to figure out how they want me to answer this question. And I was very, very afraid to go back to school, because I thought I was going to get punished physically, because that's how we were in orphanage. And we didn't get our homework done. We got beaten with a ruler, or even with the tree limbs. So if we didn't finish our homework, whatever the reason, because we didn't understand the questions, we would just basically got beat. And nobody explained to me, nobody knew. And they didn't know what kind of life I lived. So they didn't know to say, hey, it's okay if you don't finish it. They're not going to hurt you. But I didn't know that.
It took you a long time, as someone who had been abused, to unlearn. And I think it takes a lifetime almost to unlearn some of those mistrusts, and because it's so horrible what you went through, that it's akin to being in a war. It's really, in my mind, no different.
And I was told that by the counselor, I had many, many counselors after I came to America. But one of the counselors just told me, and I learned this just before COVID. She said that you lived your life like a POW.
You had post traumatic stress disorder. Yeah.
And I remember just taking a bath maybe once or twice a year. We had to walk a couple of miles and we had to get all the kids from the handicap pushing on the wheelchairs with crutches. We had to go to public bath places and we would spend 2 hours or so just scrubbing or dirt because you only got bathed once or twice. It was a big chore for all the staff to push everybody to the public. Sometimes it took them 2 days.
Some say when you endure trauma, while it has a negative impact, one of the things it also does is it gives you an incredible resolve and you're able to focus and achieve more than other people because, in a way, it's easier because you know how bad life can be. How did your trauma affect you in a positive way, if at all?
Boy, tremendously. I think that having that desire to learn to walk, because basically my sister dropped me off and I have no choice. Everybody was walking with
Right.
crutches and I didn't walk. And so when I learned that without thinking, and so I'm going to learn to walk so I could help my friends because, so I could push their wheelchairs. That was my goal. I want to learn to walk so I could help them. I set myself I'm just going to learn to walk. That's it. No other reasons other than wanting to help children, other my friends. So I think through trauma, where I had a nothing, I thought about being in America, being adopted. I have a whole new life, brand new opportunity. Like I don't have to stay small. I could talk to people. I remained kind of silent and just barely, try to please my parents because I didn't want to get sent back to Korea.
Which, of course, they would have never done, but you were afraid of that, right?
Right. They would have never done that. But I was afraid. I was always hanging over my head. And I wanted to prove to myself, to prove to them how grateful I am that they adopted me, that I had a family, that they love me the way I am with all my, my handicaps, like they did all kinds of surgery on me. They fixed my lip, they fixed my legs. So I was in a crutches for a whole year, six months in a cast for one leg at a time. And I was just so, so grateful that I was grateful enough to just have a family, but they fixed me all up so I could even stand to look in the mirror and I could smile.
And it's interesting to me that you then pivoted at some point to become a certified nurse assistant to take care of people. It's a really interesting career choice. Do you want to talk a minute about that?
When I learned to walk in orphanage and I started pushing my friends, their younger kids, pushing in a wheelchair, they gave me actually a white dress and they started to call me nurse. They call me Nurse Sun Young. And I just said, I'm only like, what, 7, 8, 9 years old,
Right.
when I started helping. And I thought that was kind of cute. So that kind of implanted in my mind. And then when I came to America, graduated from the high school, 1 point away from high honors, I graduated with honors. But it took me getting up at 4 in the morning with the flash because I was sharing my bed with my sisters on a bunk bed and I didn't want to wake her up. So I would take my little teeny flashlights and just study, study, study. So I got a scholarship to nursing at the University of Utah. After fall came, I graduated in May. In the fall, I went there. I lived there. They pay for everything but my books. I, stayed there for dorms and
Oh,
meals,
that's
everything.
incredible.
So I took it. And then they says, well, you're doing well and you qualify for additional scholarship, full scholarship, 4 years for RN. And I said, you know what? With my language barrier, I don't know if I want to study for the next 4 years in college, but I want to be a nurse. I found out what the medical system meant. You get to be a nurse in a doctor's office settings. Like, oh, I want that. So that's when I pivoted to medical assistant. Obviously, money wasn't good, but I loved the job. I was satisfied. I was excited to go to work every day. And I was working in my dream job. Yeah, it filled my heart. I was happy. I was just like my dream job. But financially, I was living in a broken system, meaning I was working 40 plus hours. I was working on my day off doing catering business. I was doing detail house cleaning. I sold vacuums at night. I did all those things on my weekends and nights after work, my day off as a single mother. Because after my, being married with the first husband for 14 years and with the domestic violence, I filed for divorce. And he says, "You're going to end up in a welfare." And I said, "Not me. I could work."
You give side hustle a new definition. You had about 5 side hustles, right? You did what you needed to do to survive.
Me living in a broken system financially, struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay bills. My utilities were, being turned off. So I just worked my butt off. Then I was watching my patients. So I was working for internal medicine doctor for 20 years of my career. I saw same people, same families, same individuals for 20 years. And as I was watching, observing them, I noticed something very drastic changes with the elderly people. As a people are retiring, they were sick, they ended up spending all their retirement money that they earned, they made in the emergency room or assisted livings. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to retire late when I get old, so old that I can no longer work. And I don't have that kind of life. And so, with that life lessons learned from observing my patients, I decided to retire early, and plus my financial reasons that I was living in a broken system and I had to do something different. So I retired without any money.
And so how did that come about? Why options? That's so interesting to me.
Exactly. Why options? I have never heard about it. But I heard about my doctor buying stocks all the time. He says, "Oh, I'm buying stocks here." And I thought, it's just over my head because I can afford it. Before I retired in 2014, though, you have to prepare yourself to retire. You can't just say, "Oh," because I knew that I couldn't use my retirement money.
What's amazing to me is that you knew, maybe because of your life, that you had to prepare for retirement. Yet so many Americans, even today, don't understand what is going to be at the end of the road for them in terms of how much money they'll need to get by. And the fact that you already were thinking about that 10 years ago is amazing to me.
Yeah, I had to because I didn't want to go back to without living without any money. When I was thinking about retiring, talking to my doctor in 2014, and I said, "I'm going to retire early." And he says, "When?" I said, "Within a year." And he's like, "Do you have any money?" And I said, "No, I have no money, savings or checking." I was a single mom and I knew that I could collect my social security. I knew that I could not dip into my, my pension plan or my 401k because I was going to retire early. So exactly a year from 2014, I retired in 2015 in December. And the moment when I was having a conversations with my doctor, when I told him that I was going to retire, and he says, "Well, do you have any money saved up?" And I said, "No, I have no money." That scared me. So I thought I was going to become a real estate investor, and that's what I did. I invested all these properties using my home equity loan because I had no money. We used the home equity loan to buy all these properties, rental properties and everything. The reason I looked into option trading because when I was going about becoming a real estate investor, and they said, when you become and doing your business with the real estate, you can make lots of money. What are you guys going to do with the money that you make? I don't know. I'll just put them in my CD, my, IRA. And they says, "Well, why don't you learn to do option trading?" And I said, "What is that? Never heard about it." And they says, "Well, you could come to this class." And I said, "What does it entail?" Because you got to use a computer. And I said, "I'm out. I'm not doing this because I'm not a computer, savvy." But looking at my goal, I wanted to retire. I wanted to be able to maintain my current income, which was like I was making 30,000. And I thought if I could stay retired making 30,000 on my own without working for a company, I'll be happy.
In the meantime, too, did you still have the houses that were building equity or did you sell those?
I didn't make any money doing real estate.
It was a learning experience.
Yeah, well, I had a rental property and I was making money because I had a rental property. Basically, people say, "You have a rental property, you can make money." So I did without any knowledge and a skill. And I had a rental property. I was living in a home with my girls. And then when I got married to my second husband, who I'm married to now, I decided to rent that house out. And it was a disaster because I didn't have any skills and no knowledge. And so that's the reason we attended that, the real estate thing. hoping to get some skills and the knowledge to make some money. And anyway, so over the years, we ended up selling those properties, and we did buy an adult daycare, and we bought it for like $242,000. And 5 years later, we ended up selling it for $800,000. So we did make a profit on that business.
You said
too.
a daycare?
Yeah, we had an adult daycare. We offer restorative therapy for the seniors because I knew the seniors were getting deteriorating from my work. And I was trying to help them to remember the memory muscles for mentally and physically, because a lot of them know they forgot how to comb their hair, brush their teeth. So we opened that business. 9 months later, due to COVID, we had to close down. We ended up selling that business. And so then I really focused on doing options because I thought, you know what, people can afford to go to a nursing home or a daycare or assisted living because a lot of times, it's out of pocket. And so I still am working in seniors in my mind and also as a single mother that I was suffering financially. And so I decided to really focus on option trading. And so I learned that in 2014, before I retired, in 2015, I practiced. 2016, when I retired, January 2016, I actually studied it for a whole year because I had no job to go to. I'm going to treat this as like my new job, new career. And I started it with a hobby. And it was a fascinating. And I thought, how could anybody could just click the fingertips from your computer and make 30,000 from one trade in 1 to 5 days?
And while that's exciting, I think it's also important to say to people who are listening that the opposite can happen if you don't know what you're doing, right? You could lose 30,000 within
Yes,
a day.
exactly. So let me kind of tell you that journey. So in 2016, I got to test drive it and I got to do it on a virtual account. And I set a goal. I wanted to make $100,000. I ended up making 178. Now, I did lose 50,000. This is all virtual money.
Right. It's like paper loss.
Yeah, paper loss. Yeah, right. I lost and I would make like 50,000 in one day or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a crazy. And my husband said, too bad it's not real money, whatever. But in 2017, though, actually, that I did lose some money because, I was start doing a real account. So I made 178. I lost 50,000. Now, if I would have focused on negative and I would have said, oh, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose 50,000 and I don't want to lose more money. So I am just going to stop. I would have never found out that I could be a millionaire. Instead, it's a recognizing and saying, okay, I lost 50,000, but I made 178, a lot more greater. So if I would have made 100, if I didn't lose 50,000 and 178 plus 50,000, it would have been over 200 and some odd $1,000. So I was focusing on positive. I was focusing on, yes, it's just like a fear. I feel the fear. I hear the fear. It's there. That's okay. But I can still continue to go on.
What a mindset change, too, from the little girl who was in an orphanage, who didn't trust anyone, to believing in yourself enough to have a positive and abundant mindset shift. That's incredible in and of itself. For listeners who don't know what an option is there a way to explain it simply?
Options they've been around for 40, 50 years. I found out as I was studying them. Someone who wants to make money, but they don't have a lot of money. So a lot of times, people think, well, I don't have any money to invest in a stock. That's how I was. My doctor was buying stocks and selling stocks. I have no money.
I was wondering that, actually. That makes so much sense. I was like, why didn't you go into equities? But now I understand.
Because it's so much less expensive, so much cheaper. So in other words, to buy a stocks, Boeing, for example, let's say it's like $200 per share. And to buy one shares, it's going to cost you quite a bit of money. Where you want to do options, you could literally buy one contract. It's only going to cost you $200.
And so when you say one contract, can you tell the listeners what is the contract for?
So contract is like there's a 1 share or 2 share, 3 share, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shares of stocks. 1 share means like plus one. Plus one means like 1 share. You're buying a 1 share of Boeing. But if you're buying 10 shares, it will be plus 1,000. In options, it will be plus 1 or plus 10 in options.
So with options, I actually don't understand it as obviously as well as you. You're an expert. But isn't it that you're buying the option to sell or buy at a certain price? You're looking at the market and kind of it's a hedge, right?
Yeah. So there's many different types of strategies within the options. It's it seems very complicated. A lot of people don't do that. But because there's specific strategies that I have studied for the whole year, Monday through Friday, when the market was open, I was able to come up with a strategy called Unique Miracle System. So options is you look at the market and say if a market, say Boeing company is going up, you set up your option trading, you choose a single leg put or single leg call. So it depends on who you talk to. But strategies that I use, that I implement, that I use for my money, where I make anywhere between 30 to 50,000 a weekly basis. That's my norm of 50,000 a week. And so for me, and it only takes me like maybe 2, 3 minutes to set that up. Very easy to do. Very, very simple. You could you could get into options to make money, or you could sell the options to get into a trade to sell to make money. So in other words, like if the Boeing market is up and you want to set up a down trade because it's up, now anything that goes up is going to have to come down, right? Or anything is down, it has to go up sometime, right? That's how market works. So you figure if the Boeing market is up, now you want to set up a down trade because it's already hit the highest market. And so it's a no-brainer for us to set up a market that is going down trade to make the profit as the market is,
Going down.
yeah. So then you would set up a put. So if the market is going down, so market is up, you want to set up a down trade, then you would set up a put. You would go into options on the put and you would buy or sell, depends on what you want to do. But in my strategy, I would buy a put for down trade. And then again, if the Boeing market is down and you think the market's going to go up, then I would
You
go
do a
into the
call.
call side. There's a single leg strategies and a single put, a single call, and then there's a vertical strategies. You choose a two strike prices, and that's what I'm really, really good at because that's where the most money is when I set up a vertical.
That's fascinating. And so you come up with your unique miracle system. Do you teach that to people?
Yes, I do. I have a clients that sign up. I have a free webinar actually, like first Saturday of each month. I give free
Okay.
webinar.
Where do people find out about it?
They could go to my Instagram. I have a link tree and they could just sign up. And then I also have a mentoring session because I think that people need to have this mind shift. Because the reason I think I became a millionaire is because I thought there's some people out there making. There are millionaires and billionaires. Why not me? I have to tell myself that I can make more than what the corporate company was paying me for.
You've done it to such success, which I applaud you for. Look at you. And I guess my question would be my father, I mentioned this in an email to you. He's an immigrant or was an immigrant, came to America, was an entrepreneur, and then, like you, learned the market. And that's where he made his real money as well. But he had that same mindset that you're talking about, but he was also 24/7 watching the market. Is that what you're doing too?
No. Options is only open, weekdays, Monday through Friday. So I became like a day trader, basically. So a lot of the day traders, they will spend their time in front of the computer, which I do not want to live that kind of lifestyle. The strategies that I use is I go into my trade, I set up my trades, and then I preset my closing order right away. Although, when the time that you want to close, only thing about the options is though, you have to set up your options to have like expired days. Stocks, there's no expired days, but options you do. So you get to decide when you want it to expire, like 7 days or 30 days or 45 days or 1 year. You could have it whenever you want it to expire. That's one thing that I want to kind of mention that for your audience as well. The days that you're going to close, whether it's the expired day, a lot of times, I ended up closing it before the expired days. The day that I'm going to close, I'm going to look at the market specifically and see if I could make extra $1,000. If a market goes up another dollar, that means extra $1,000 or $10,000 for me. That's when I kind of look at it more closely. But a lot of times I just set my trays and then I just set pre-closing order and I'm just doing my regular, my life.
What would you say to our listeners? I know that you have two books, and I would love for you to tell our audience about. What would you say if you are learning about investing for the first time? Let's say you're a single mother. Where should you start?
It's a very, very important to get a coach or a mentor because when you're trying to learn on your own, a lot of times you end up wasting your money and your time, and the results will take much, much longer. So, for example, like my real estate, when I had an empty house, I was renting that out without any skills and knowledge. I did not make any money at all. That's the reason why I went. So, somebody who's, single mother where I was, and if I would have known Sun Young when I was single mother, there was another person like me, and I was single mother, I would have definitely would do anything to learn that because
Yes.
there wasn't anybody there doing the strategies that I'm teaching. You only have to be disciplined and you're willing to risk and you're willing to spend the money to make the money because nothing is free in life. If you don't take a risk, you're not going to find out the results. Or if I focus on the negative when I lost 50,000 and made 178,000, if I focus on the negative and if I'm afraid to continue because I'm afraid that I was going to lose another 50,000, I won't be where I am here either.
Are there any red flags though? Because you're a seasoned investor and you know what to look out for. But are there things that you can tell my audience of, like, if someone ever says such and such to you, beware, or I don't know. I don't know what do people need to be careful about?
They need to be really careful about who they are learning from because you could learn this stuff free. You could watch my YouTube too. I have a YouTube channel and you could pick up some tips and things like that. But when I have a lot of clients come to me and say they tried to do it on their own for 30 years, buying and selling stocks, and they took an option class from somebody else and they waited for me to learn from me. And there's a huge difference, the strategies that I teach. But when someone says, you know what, I could teach you, I've been told by my clients that they take their money and they never could get hold of them. You want to look at the persons and have them show their proof. People come to my webinar like Saturday, first Saturday of each month. I'm able to show them the proof that where I took my husband's retirement money. He worked for government for 34 years and had $164,000. I took that money, I turned that into $604,000 in not 11 years, but 11 months. You want to be able to see that proof that someone is keeping up with the current market and that they can show how they made.
Explain it, and then also I would imagine ask for not testimonials, but be able to speak maybe perhaps to actual clients, also references, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. So I have a testimonials that they could call people on and things like that easily. I show that on my webinar, list of the testimonies, how much they actually made, how much they lost and things like that. It's important because market, like if I don't lose any money and then if I make, I'll be so busy. I wouldn't have a life because they would be knocking on my door.
It can't be that easy, right? Or we would all be millionaires. There's got to be something to it. I would love for you to let our audience know you had shown me two of the books that you have written. If you could let us know about those and then about where people can learn more about you.
I wrote a book called Invest in Yourself. It's funny because I can invest myself when I was an orphan. I had nothing. I didn't even think about investing. But when I was given an opportunity, we get so many opportunities given to us in our life, in our journey. You have to take opportunity. And so when I was given an opportunity to have a home, have a family, to love them and trust them, and I decided somebody invested in me and I took that into literally, you have to invest in yourself. A lot of times, a lot of us say, I want to invest in my daughter, my son, my grandkids, but you have to learn to invest in yourself. Otherwise, they won't listen to you. So this book is how I learned to invest in myself. So now I'm investing other people to help them to invest their own life financially, mentally, physically, in every
It's all
aspect.
tied in.
And then my husband and I, we wrote a book together. It's called Opposite Opposites. When I met my husband online, I thought I hit a jackpot because he didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he was a Catholic, he was a religious, and he had a good paying job working for government. I thought, I hit myself a jackpot, right? Because I had a really bad relationships. I've been abused by boyfriends and a lot of different kinds of abuses throughout my life by men because I didn't have any self-confidence. I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't have any, any of those things that I needed to learn. But when I married him and he was nice, but he was opposite of me. I'm like, what? You don't like to exercise? You got to be kidding me. You have to exercise because when you make money, if you don't have good health, how are you going to enjoy your money? You're going to end up spending all your money to doctor's bill. Anyway, so we wrote a book called Opposite because it's a funny book. It's also helpful tool book. It helps couples how they could stay married even though they're opposite of each other.
Is it like having a money conversation? Like you guys were also different in terms of how you viewed money as well?
Yes. He didn't want to be an author. And I said, why not? He's like, because I don't like to talk. And in fact, I found out that he didn't like to talk probably just before COVID. And we were on the verge of going through the divorce, actually, because we were so stressed with the business. Right. But this is a funny book to pick up. But you could find me through my Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Unique Miracle System, International Entrepreneur Movement Group, Why Not Me Movement Group. I have a mentoring sessions, coaching, and all kinds of stuff. But my husband and I are so opposite. I found out I've been with him for about 15 years. So I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, on our way to a restaurant. And he was just driving around the parking lot. And I said, what are you doing? He says, I can't find the restaurant. I said, we've been there before. He says, but I cannot find it. There's a construction. And I was on the phone with somebody else. And he was going in circles. And I was getting dizzy. I was hungry. We just got done with the business meeting. I hung up the phone and I said, couldn't you call to restaurant? And he says, no, I don't like to talk. And I said, you got to be kidding me. You're just barely telling me that you don't like to talk. I would have never married you. If you told me right at the beginning that you don't like to talk, I would never married you.
It's such a stereotypical male thing, but I've known it to be true myself that men don't like to ask for directions, I have to say.
But we were only like 50 feet away. I called the restaurant. I said, how do you get there? Because there's a construction. And he says, just look over and realize it was 15. And I told my husband, I said, if you take me home without taking me to that Thai restaurant, we're only 50 feet away. I'm not making you lunch. You're on your own. I was hangry, meaning I was hungry, I was angry.
And so angry, yeah.
So,
oh my goodness. It has been such an inspiration to speak to you today, Sun Yong. And I'm so grateful for you telling your story authentically. And I will be sure that any listeners can find all of your books and your resources. And I think that there's so much to be learned from your life. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Dory. I really, really appreciate this opportunity because I think that my life was such a mess and such a disaster and such a messy that I didn't really want to share. But, your messy life, messy message could save somebody so they could achieve their financial goals. So they could teach their kids, and it's a generations on. I realized the importance of sharing my message that I held out for so many years because I didn't want to share. It was just such a trauma that I went through. I really am grateful and appreciate this opportunity that I get to interview by you for your special podcast. The She Ventures is awesome. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. You've been listening to She Ventures. Like what you heard? You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and sign up for our newsletter so you never miss a show.